Welcome everybody to the very first episode of Carbon Positive podcast. In this podcast, we want to talk about all things positive in motorsport. And this podcast itself is brought to you by Carbon Positive Motorsport, the people who are responsible for carbon offsetting in motorsport. We'll cut straight to it. We've got some super special guests with us, and I'm going to let those people introduce themselves. Starting with, let's go with the driver, Fergus.
Hello everybody, so I'm Fergus Barlow and I am this year's most recent winner of the Beatson's Mull Rally.
Lovely. Now, I said driver as though there wasn't any more drivers, but I think there is. Damien, tell us a bit about you.
Hi, so I'm Damien. I own Viking Offshore, and we had the honour of supporting Fergus for his win at this year's Beatson's Building Supplies Mull Rally. I'm also a driver, having my first ever event being the Mull Rally in 2021.
And finally, the boss behind the scenes of Positive Motorsport, Paul. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hi there, I'm Paul Glass. I'm the founder of Carbon Positive Motorsport, but I do this together with two other great colleagues. And I'm also a driver. Not been out so often recently, but I'm a Lada fanatic, and that's the cars I drive in rallying over the last years.
Lovely. Now, no podcast will be complete without somebody behind the scenes doing the admin. So we've got a co-driver doing that. Proper person who might just turn the mute button on and say hello, but we won't see her. That's Kat Lund. Kat, say hello.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks, Kat. Right, we're going to start talk about rallying. It's everything positive. There's nothing more positive than what's happening right now because the Roger Albert Clark Rally has started. It's day one of that event. It's a moment in history because it's got to be the biggest, most exciting competition event that's taken place, certainly in recent years. It's a 5-day event. It's the longest endurance rally that's taken place. It's in forests, and that part of it is really synonymous with what we're talking about in carbon offsetting. So first of all, guys, who do we think is going to win the rally? We'll try and predict the future. This is the Roger Albert Clark, and we roughly know what's going on today. So let's talk about it. Fergus, as a driver, what do you think of what's going on?
So obviously we just had Chris Meek kind of just fall out there with a mechanical failure. So after his performance on the Mull Rally, of course, the most important and the best rally in the world, going to go for Ocean Prize.
Okay, Damien?
Yeah, I would probably concur with Fergus. I think he's the right man for the moment. So yeah, I would go with that as well.
Now, I'm also going to stick with you. Another question here, Damien. You're a sponsor. We're going to find out more about how you've got involved in sponsorship. But something like the event that the Roger Albert Clark is pulling off is, and there are other great events, but this is really a pinnacle. I mean, it's fantastic. It must offer great sponsorship opportunities and so thrilling to see tens of thousands of spectators.
Absolutely, it is, and having made the transition to a sponsor this year has been great. But there's also the guys that make up the rally. It's the clubmen that don't really get the sponsorship. And that's where both myself and Fergus and a few others have looked at. And some of the junior guys coming into the sport as well, for them to gain even a set of tyres from a sponsor, it can be the difference of being able to go out and do an event or not. So although, the top 10, top 20 guys, the focus, the media follows these, and it's sadly the guys at the back of the pack get forgotten about a little bit. And they really are the guys that are needing the support and help for the sponsors. And, we would really ask companies and individuals that can support these clubman teams that some of them might only do one event annually, and they put so much of their time and their own resources in it, and just a little bit of sponsorship and support can make the difference. And that's what we believe is maybe lacking a little bit in the rallying in the UK as a whole.
We'll definitely dive into that in more detail shortly. I'm just going to quickly touch from Paul's point of view. You're involved in lots of different events. Just give us a quick overview from carbon offsetting when it comes to an event like the Roger Albert Clark, because it's such a high profile public event that I think it desperately needs to be offsetting carbon, especially when we take in 30,000 people into Forest to start to watch rallies. And now I'm going to, after this, you've answered this question, I'm also going to talk about Mull Rally, but I think these two link really well because Roger Albert Clark is basically a forestry-based event. And for most of the public, that'll seem like, well, it's the antichrist of everything that we do, you know, it's machines in forests, what looks like to the general public, destroying the environment. So from your point of view, Paul, first of all, how do forest rallies and forest events fit into Tarmac? You know, what can you do as a company to help these events look more public, well, more environmentally friendly and have a better image to the public?
It is about perception. I often say to people, what's the sport that actually has the worst impact on climate change? And I know some of the team here know, but it's golf and football, you know, but it's the perception of motorsport that makes it so bad. And of course, you know, Forestry Commission across the country are quite restrictive now on giving permits to events. But we've also had positive feedback from Forestry Commission, various entities related to that, that at least events are doing something. So I think what we're doing is we're improving environmental quality, not just by carbon offset, and that's actually a byproduct of what we support. We look for very high quality projects that will improve environments, improve biodiversity. So the offset is the sort of benefit you get from doing that in a good way. We don't just choose any project. We have a specialist that works with us who's very much into ensuring that only the very best projects we use. So we're a little bit positioning ourselves to say it's about the quality of what we offer, and that quality supports events, supports sponsors of events, but also for spectators even. You know, they can all get involved. It doesn't have to be just the competitors or the teams. Everyone can offset to make their little contribution to mitigating the environmental impact.
Just stop me there, Paul, and let's go back a little bit because people might not understand what, you know, carbon offsetting is. So if we give a few examples, I'll give my own experience with this. I first met you when doing a forum conversation with multiple British champion Matt Edwards, who's an ambassador for your project. And when I realised that it was as simple as giving you literally a few pound to offset the fuel usage whilst doing a rally, but then in effect you get a sticker, you're offsetting your carbon, and you can proudly say that you're having a positive impact on the environment. To me, that was an amazing opportunity to do positive PR, and something that, you know, I was trained 30 years ago with Peugeot as part of Peugeot's young driver program to try and talk positively about the environment and that rallying wasn't a negative thing. And that was a struggle. And we didn't have the opportunity to use carbon offsetting as a way to be positive about motorsport. And now we do. So to me, it was a gift of like, really? You only need to pay a relatively small amount. It's pence per mile, offset your fuel use, and then you're carbon positive. And I thought that was wonderful from a driver's point of view. But clearly, this needs to be driven by events. And events themselves need to take it on board and offset as much as they possibly can within an event. Before I move on, I'm just going to ask Fergus. You're a young guy, Fergus. You'll be more environmentally conscious than any of us old boys will be. So how did you get involved with feeling carbon positive, and what impact did it make to you?
It was kind of through Damien at Viking Offshore had said that there's this chap, Paul, he's talking about this carbon positive thing. And, you know, the only thing I'd heard about this before was a little tick box that I just put on the entry form the previous year. I had not any idea what it was. Very naive to it all, if I'm being totally honest. I spoke to Paul honestly about this before. I says, Paul, you know, is this you tick a box and you plant some trees and you pay some money and it's as simple as that? You know, I was very naive to the idea and I didn't understand a lot of it. And then Paul kind of came to me and says, look, we're looking for some ambassadors for to kind of cover this year's Mull Rally. And, you know, would you be interested to kind of give us a bit of publicity, maybe talk about it, just kind of be part of it all? And of course I says, absolutely, you know, we'll work together and see what it's all about. But, you know, before I put my name to anything, I want to know a bit about it. You know, it's being a bit silly to kind of put the sticker on the car and kind of be, you know, a bit in the dark about what it actually means. You don't want to just put it on there and crack on, you know. So I kind of had a bit of a meeting or a phone call with Paul, and I kind of said, okay, what's this thing about? What is it we're actually doing here? And I have to say, I was on the phone to Paul for probably more than an hour, and I was actually at work, so it was longer than I should have been, but that's okay. We'll keep that between us. And so I was on the phone, and I was just blown away. He's got a fantastic story that he tells about the threats that rallying has. So if you look back in the Group B days, those most amazing and fantastically powerful and aggressive cars, you know, lightweight, dangerous, as we've seen, that, you know, they were threatened and kind of, blocked and cancelled, you know, on safety grounds. And that was probably quite rightly so. And, you know, nowadays, when you have a look at it, Paul kind of said, you know, about a rally, and he was looking, you know, is my son going to be able to see as much rallying or be a part of it as much as, you know, I have? You know, so what's going to stop us now? And the modern day thing was the environment. You know, everyone's kind of pushing towards, you know, rallying. I know we've had some really bad accidents, you know, of late, and that's very unfortunate. But, you know, that's probably the Swiss cheese effect. You know, it's not very common. And the safety standards are just huge in the car. So now we've got to switch fire onto the next risk. And the next risk that Paul explained to me was the environment. You know, the cars are going, you know, to all towards battery powered and electric. And I tell you what, they don't sound nearly as good as a Mark II Escort off the line. Or, you know, if you're sitting, you listen to David Bogie and that just animal of a thing that he's got, and you're like, we can't let this go. We need to do everything in our power as not only ourselves, but as a rallying community to get behind this, get positive. It's such a fantastic catchphrase, you know. He's really got it good there. So, you know, this carbon positive, we need to be positive about this, because if we don't get behind this, the rallying will be gone quicker than we can tell, you know. It'll be straight out the window. So we have to do our bit. And now that I understand a bit more about the process and this amazing hard work that Paul's putting in, you know, it's not just as simple as, you know, he'll give you exactly the technical terms and the jargon and exactly what's involved. But, you know, a simple mind like me, it's not just as simple as planting a tree and just letting it grow and that's you. You know, you have to ensure that that tree will grow and it will, you know, eat up this carbon that you've pledged that you're going to kind of absorb. So I found it so interesting from a kind of engineering perspective and, you know, chemistry kind of perspective. I just think it's absolutely amazing what he's doing, and he's looking ahead. You know, not a lot of us are not taking too much note at the moment because we don't know an awful lot about it. But hopefully through schemes like this, and as the word goes out, and, you know, people will be like, look, if it costs us 1%, 2%, you know, onto our entry fee for each rally we do to keep the thing alive, then sign us up. You know, I think it's a fantastic scheme, a great partnership, and he's done absolutely brilliant things for the sport and the rallying community.
Wonderful. And that brings us into two things. One, I'll say that my son's about to start rallying at age 14. And at 14, again, he's really environmentally aware. And for me to be able to say, we've got this opportunity to do something, and like you say, dig a little bit deeper. He's actually doing some carbon offsetting research as part of the school project. So 100% it's the future. It's brilliant to see you talking so passionately as a young guy, clearly a great ambassador for rallying, if I say that. And that brings me right on to Damien. You're a young driver that deserves some support. I'm definitely going to dig into a little bit of where you're from, what you're about, you know, where your history, how you did it, because you've come on to win a rally that's really, really impressive. But before I touch on that, I'm just going to go back to Damien. In this podcast, you're representing sponsors. So I'm just going to ask you that question. I mean, I think it's obvious, but first of all, what do you do, and how important is carbon offsetting to a sponsor, Damien?
It's for us, it's massive, because our company, my company, is 95% of our revenue comes from renewable energy. So therefore, I cannot be seen to be backing any sort of sport or sector that isn't doing something to address their carbon footprints. I think some of the conversations we've had after the rally with our customers have kind of given me a little bit of a poke in the ribs and said, oh, what you're publicising the win, but they weren't aware of what Paul and the team have done behind the scenes. And we've said, well, actually, yeah, we did get the win, or Fergus and Craig got the win, but we offset 100% of the fuel. And it instantly, radically changed their opinion on not only the publicity we've put out, but motorsport and the Beaton's Rally. And it's positive. And as Fergus says, to reiterate that, the positive motorsport, well, it's in the title. It's fantastic. And I think we're all duty bound, regardless if we're drivers, sponsors, spectators. There's the next generations to come, and we're all custodians for the sport, and it's our duty to ensure that they have something to come to.
From your point of view as a sponsor, it's important that you understand that we are carbon offsetting and the positive side of that. But actually, you've just reminded me that it's our duty not only to pay the pence literally per mile to offset, but we need to shout about it. Or I know the event organisers at Mull, they do a great job. It's a really unusual place, a really special place. So we can talk about Mull now. And I think because people travel there, it's almost offshore in itself. It's a magical place. If there's ever a place that is synonymous with environmental issues, it's probably Mull, and it will be an absolute flagship for motorsport, because it would be so easy to say that motorsport shouldn't exist on the island. It doesn't fit with the criteria that people might expect if they're on the tourist board. We know a bit better than that, and maybe I'll come back to Fergus straight away to say, Mull Rally, why is it special? It's on a little island up there, up north somewhere near Scotland. But tell us, for people that don't even know what Mull is, just give us a quick overview, not just of the rally, but obviously tell us where you live and a little bit about growing up on Mull and what the rally means.
Okay, so I've grown up on Mull, and I lived on Mull for the best part of 20 years of my life. I was actually almost born on the lifeboat, because that's the way things happen on an island. It's very, very untoward and very, unusual the way that life goes on here. There's lots of pros and lots of negatives. And, as far as like industry and, the commercial aspect on the island, it's, very, very different to what you have available on the mainland. So, there's not a lot of, certain jobs available. If you want to kind of better your career or move on in certain industries, you're very, very limited in sense that you have to kind of go onto the mainland and kind of spread your wings a bit. But what you lose out in some things, you gain drastically in community and spirit, and this place has it in spades. It really does. There's such a fantastic community of people all around here that all get together, and through the events that happen through the year, you have the New Year parties, you have the music festivals, you have countless activities and big things that go on through the season. You've got cruise boats and cruise ships, a massive tourism aspect to the island, which really just totally keeps the place going. And then that culminates, and you'll believe it or not, I work for Calmac on the ferries, and we actually adjust our timetable so that we don't want a winter reduced timetable until after the Mull Rally. That's how important this rally is. And, growing up, I kind of was around, obviously, the rally, all the years that I can remember. There was either folks staying at the house and they had the car in the garden and they were kind of building and mechanicking it, and as a young lad getting stuck in and about it and desperate for a run in the car. And we were running, we're going down at the little junction down the road, and we're getting autographs in our little sheet from every single driver, and every single one says, yeah, we're going to cheer you on. Well, we had about 100 names in there, but we're cheering everyone on anyway, so it was good. And basically what I'm kind of saying is that it was such a huge part of island life and an important part is the Mull Rally. Motorsport is extremely in the blood of everyone that lives here. You know, it's probably not on the level of, let's say, the Isle of Man TT, for example, but it's a similar kind of idea. For people that haven't visited the island, it's very kind of arduous and aggressive roads. It's a tarmac rally, single track roads, you know, very mixed surface. And the time of year in October, when it happens every year, the weather is just, they call it, you know, Mull weather. We've literally had, you know, 4 seasons in one day. You know, you can start a stage and it be sunshine, then rain as you come up the hill towards the end of Greeben, and then it could be frosty at the top. You know, you can literally have the full whack. It's, you know, a seriously challenging event, and it's a lot of it historically has been done through the night, and that's a massive appeal for the event. That's what separates the Mull Rally from the rest. You know, you're setting off at 7 o'clock at night on the Friday night with the headlamps on, and you're straight into it. You know, it's kind of like the shock of capture. You know, if you're not rallying all the time, you're going in, what's going on here? You're trying to figure out where you're going, and I think you know, all these aspects bring into the uniqueness and, you know, the beautiful aspect of this event. It's, you know, it's in my blood. I love it, as you can tell. I'm extremely passionate about the Mull Rally, and I'd like to just kind of touch on, Damien had some lovely sentiments to say earlier on, where he kind of touched on like the grassroots rally and, you know, the clubman level competitors. And I tell you something, there's absolutely no rallying without these competitors. These are the absolute, you know, heart and blood and soul of these events. I can tell you that for sure. There's no event if 10 of us spend thousands, tens of thousands of pounds to go out and go super fast in these fancy cars, because if the rest of them don't turn up, then there's no entry fees paid for, you know, all that is included in the rally organising event. So, you know, as far as kind of like the sponsorship side of it and stuff, I was kind of listening to Damien, and, you know, very, you know, resonated with me a lot of his words there, that, you know, sponsoring and keeping in touch with a lot of these grassroots rally and the folk that can just, they spend the whole year working up to do, you know, 1, 2, 3 events a year. And with Mull being one of those events, you know, it's a huge privilege to have them here, and we really do appreciate everything they do for us and the event.
It's a great summary. I love your passion. It's fantastic. I'm going to touch on asking a few more questions about why are the drivers notorious Mull or people that grow up on Mull, why they're such fast drivers, because we've got a few previous overall winners of some great drivers that live on the island. But first of all, I'm just going to touch with Paul. As far as the event's concerned, can you just give me an overview? Because one of the things that's probably unique about Mull is how far people have to travel to get to the island, including the ferry journey. So that's probably, out of all the events in England, it's certainly going to be right up there with people that have passion for it. And with that passion comes great traveling distances. So the competitors themselves travel from all over the UK. Dare say there's some from Europe, but definitely, you know, Bournemouth, all over the place. So there's big mileage to get to the island in the first place. So tell me a bit about how the event itself is offsetting that side.
It's all about progressively offsetting. I think the first thing to say, offsetting is not the only answer. Most important is we can measure what our footprint is. And actually, the Mull Rally were leading the way by measuring their footprint several years ago. They could actually say what the total footprint was. Around about 146 tonnes, if I remember, was the figure a few years ago. So once we've measured, then we want to reduce, because, you know, offsetting is one part of a big solution. But of course, initiatives to reduce the carbon footprint, like how clever we are with stage and road mileage, centralising spectator car parks, for example. There's many ways in which we can reduce, and that's also more important. But then what's unavoidable emissions is what we try to take care of, or try to provide an answer to. For Mull particularly, as you said, Kevin, you know, it is a tourist destination, so important for the local economy. And putting offsetting aside, if we just think more about sustainability, sustainability is not just about doing good things for the environment, it's about doing good things for people. And the Mull Rally is really, really vital for the economy in Mull. It's a big booster, you know, coming into the winter season when things do quieten down. So, you know, having a vibrant event that's bringing, you know, sustainable funds into a local economy is equally important for us. So keeping the event going is super important for that. This year, the organisers, you know, were really wanting to promote one key message, which was directed more towards tourists and also the visitors to the island. And that was respect, protect, and enjoy. And this is something that we've supported with the choice of our ambassadors this year. They haven't all been sitting in the top 10 or the podium as Fergus has. We actually had ambassadors throughout the whole field, and we chose ambassadors with the organisers based on their story about getting to the event. So some of the guys that we were working with were travelling from Devon, for example, and part of our agreement with the event was to actually provide offsetting for those travel distances. I think the person that probably travelled the furthest to the event, though, was Fergus's brother Craig, who flew from New Zealand, and we'll also take care of that this year for the event.
Fantastic. Well, that brings us back towards Fergus. We're sort of wrapping up this episode 1 of the podcast, but we're getting to 2 of the most exciting topics. As far as stories go in rallying and achieving sponsorship in quirky ways, finding yourself as a young driver where you're out there desperately seeking sponsorship. You all believe you could win your home event if you ever had the opportunity, if you ever had money coming your way. If only you had money, if only you had the opportunity. But somehow Fergus has found the opportunity, and that was given in a large part by Damien. So I'm really keen to know about this story. Let's hear it from your point of view, first of all, Damien. A young Islander somehow bumps into you who hasn't got enough money to win his home event. Apparently, he's good enough to win, but I don't think you know anything about him. So just tell us what that story was.
The first meeting I had with Fergus was back in 2021, and it was some weeks before the rally, and we were getting ready to go out recceing, and this little kind of hot hatch came zipping down the high street in Tobermory and stopped with this incredibly bubbly young man and a slightly more sensible chap sat beside him. So we stopped and we had a chat, and it was Fergus and Craig, and it became really apparent that Craig was the navigator, because he was very controlled and calculated, and Fergus was, brimming with enthusiasm. So we made our introduction, and I was trying to get a few pointers off Fergus, local lad, very quick young man from his previous outings, and off we went, and we did the rally that year. I saw him again, and anyway, we fast forward to this year, and Fergus posted put a post up of his plans. Maximum attack Mull Rally 2023. And at this point, I'd sold my cars and my shuttle trailer, and me and Rally were having a little bit of a divorce period. And I sat and thought, you know what, this is something. Maybe we can just make this work. So I reached out, and we had several conversations. And it bizarrely, Fergus's brother Craig is a saturation diver, so we were timing Teams calls with him coming in and out of saturation. So, and obviously we're busy here with the company, so there was a few challenges just to be able to always get the 3 of us in the same place to talk. And obviously Fergus is an engineer with Calmac, but it did become apparent that these guys were going to be absolutely amazing ambassadors for Viking Outlaw, no matter what the results was. And the enthusiasm, and it was the small things of, we want to get the spectators involved. This car is going to be fabulous. It's a Rally 2. It's just beautiful car. And true to his word, for both the lads, the car went to Tobermory, and I think there was more children sat in Fergus's car than probably any other Rally 2 that's in existence. And it was, that's what it's all about. So for us, yeah, obviously the result was overwhelming. It was tremendous. We were so proud of the guys and honoured to have their company on their car. And I guess, yeah, it leads to our next journey. But I'll pass Fergus on to Fergus now. I'm sure he's got something to say.
Well, Fergus, I'll slightly interrupt, but I'm just going to ask you to quote some of your, they might even be mentors, but tell me what goes on the island. Why are you boys so fast up there? For a little island, you've had a few winners over the years.
Is this you trying to chase a bit of the secrets, is it? No, it's, I think it's when you are around these roads and environment, your whole life, as soon as you get into the car, you're with the L plates on, you're driving around, you're wanting to go out and up and down these roads. I mean, I think when you're driving on single track roads, like for all these years, you become quite sharp because you're coming around the corners and you're looking for an oncoming car and you're getting ready to kind of like stop dead quick reverse. You've got to kind of be a bit more switched on, but I think I think the nature of the roads is what builds it, and probably like the basic rally community is what also spurs it on. So we've got some, really like fantastic figures. Steve Davis is just an absolute gem of the sport. Steve Davis started up what was called the Derby Bear Cubs. The Bear Cubs, you might have remembered it. It was a little red Corsa B that they had. And Steve Davis got this together in his shed, and he got all the local lads from Derby and got them all involved, and basically just shared his love for the rally and just kind of instilled it in all these, young lads and lasses, and that's what I loved about it. It was purely, there was no like, oh, this is just, get, young lads, this is like a male dominated sport. There was none of that, and that's something that I want to kind of get rid of as well. My ultimate ambition is to have, at the very least a women driver, because I know some dangerously quick women drivers on the islands, but I want an all-women's team. But I kind of digress. Like Steve Davis and the Bear Cubs, with what he did, he's basically birthed 8 to 10 or even 12 youngsters with that kind of rally fever in them right from the get-go, and what an important part he played in that. So big hats off to him. And then all of our idols, Callum Duffy and Neil McKinnon, and then huge for me is John McCrone, really fantastic. Paul McKinnon as well, great ambassadors for the sport. But, I kind of grew up loving Callum Duffy, and then kind of moving on, John McCrone was just, to come from Ireland and such raw talent in the guy, and so personable as well, and willing to chat, any rallying attributes or anything that I've done, I've always just sent him a message, or he's messaged me saying, try this or do this or anything. And, there's such a great support from local lads like that. For example, when I do the rally, on the lead up to it, I kind of say to John, what do you think I should do? Should you do this or should you do that? And there's no like, oh, you're a competitor to me, then I'm not going to tell you. Maybe it's because he knows he can beat me outright, but I'd like to think, I've got a bit of pace there. So, he's not going to just give away setups and that straight away, but he will, no problem at all. And I think the ultimate thing is being around these roads. It's just fantastic. If we are bored of a night, we don't go and do, I don't even know what you do in the mainland. What do? You tell me. But, if we are bored, we'll go for a spin out to Derby. We'll do the Loch stage just for a spin, and many a times at night when you're learning all these skills and then you're getting out and then you kind of get really into it and you're walking all these cuts and having a look at it. And, there's absolutely no denying for myself, local knowledge is huge. It's absolutely huge. It can actually sometimes hinder you, which is quite interesting. If you come into 30 mile an hour zones when you're coming into town, so you're rallying through, your brain and your subconscious tells you to slow down because you've always done that. And it's kind of fighting past that, or a bit of road that is a bit dodgy because somebody's crashed in the road car or something. You'll back off a bit. And, so it's all these interesting points that put it together. But yeah, it's I'm quite proud that it's kind of birthed a lot of quick drivers, and the new generation are coming up. Big shout out to all the young go-kart drivers in Tobermory, Benesson, and all round the island. We've got a small fleet of them all getting involved in go-karting, and that's that's where my kind of roots come from. I did probably 4 or 5 years go-karting around Britain, and that's kind of helped form me into quite a smooth driver, I would say. So big hats off to these young lads, and if they ever want to help, they know where I am. Just give us a shout, and I'll be right along to spur you on, give you some setups, and we'll all have good fun and get a good bit of pace behind the young team.
Okay, talking about good drivers, I've got a local friend of mine, Daniel Harper. He's okay on that island, isn't he? He only lives 2 miles away from me, so I know Daniel really well. And he's quick up there. Obviously, it wasn't his year this year. It would be hard to beat him. But what I want to talk about now is technology in the car that you chose. And you're not going to have, I don't even know what practice time you had, but let's call it an R5. Basically, you're in a four-wheel drive R5 car, Rally 2. Daniel's in a really similar car, albeit it's a hybrid one. What's it like to drive those cars on the island, and how much practice did you get, and how easy are they to drive? Because a really impressive part of your performance is that you didn't crash. You know, I've got an R5 car. I know that it's pretty easy to overdrive the cars and get too excited. And the combination of putting a young driver on a road he knows with little experience in an R5 car, you've done really well not to just get too excited. So big compliments for you to keep yourself under control and pace yourself. But what was it like actually? Did you aim to win first of all? And what's it been like getting used to an R5 car?
Yeah, no, thank you very much for your comments. I really appreciate those those kind words. Obviously, as you said, that was our first time in the R5 or the Rally 2 car. We had 2 outings in the last 2 years in the Subaru, which was quite heavy and a bit sluggish. It served a purpose and kind of was all about just kind of like driving smooth and that kind of like armchair rally, and just plenty of torque to dig yourself out of any issues. So that was quite a good progression to kind of jump up from the 2-wheel drive into the 4-wheel drive. To be honest, jumping into the Rally 2 car, there was times where I watched John McCrone's in car and I thought, oh my God, there's not a chance on this earth that I can drive to that level. Coming over, extremely committed. It's snapping on him sideways and he's catching it and he's not scared of it one bit. And I thought, my God, realistically, I don't think I can do that. Before the rally, I've got no experience in the car. We went over and did about 10 or 12 miles in a road in Northern Ireland over with the chaps. And then we came over and then it was into the shakedown and to get into the car. And to be honest, I felt very comfortable in the car very quickly. I was extremely surprised. And I think a lot of that is down to the work that I put into the simulator. So I can't, afford to do all this, but that's absolutely fine. I can't afford to be rallying this every weekend. That's okay. That's no problem. So I've got to use my assets, what I've got to my advantage. And those are 2 things. Those are the simulator and my local knowledge. I need to capitalize on these 2 things if I'm going to be anywhere and do a sensible drive. So the simulator, as soon as I went in the car, I found it, extremely kind of familiar, actually, believe it or not. The crossover from the simulator into the car was really quite similar. One thing I did find was in the simulator, the car tended to understeer quite a lot, and I struggled to adjust the setup to counteract that. So I was concerned that I was going to have that issue. And a lot of people said, with the anti-lag system in the Rally 2 car, that you're going to really push into the corners. Now that certainly was the case, but over the course of the weekend, I managed to learn quite quickly in the mechanics of the car. And then I had to just be bold and get confident in myself with adjusting the setup in an unfamiliar car. To be honest, I was just winging it. I was like, I don't know, it feels a bit too floaty. Let's just try and stiffen up and see what happens. We've got nothing to lose. And then the anti-lag settings, it was set, in mode 6, which is the most aggressive for all of it. I learned that if I get to a certain bit where I know it's going to be kind of tight ahead, we're dropping that down to 5 and 4 just to stop the nose pushing on and putting a lot of heat into the brakes, which then goes into the tyres. You then overheat the tyres. So I found it, the mechanics of it, I found it so interesting and so fun to drive. I think you kind of said, like, what was your aspirations, or how did you think you were going to get on in the car? I think my mates can kind of back me up that I'd said to them once the entry list came out and I seen who was doing it and the cars that are involved. I says, I realistically think that I can get 3rd place. I was fairly confident that if I put in a good steady drive, I can get 3rd place. My game plan before the rally was 3rd place. It was anywhere on the podium. I didn't care. As long as I was behind the pipe along the main street, that was job's a good one, in my opinion. I did want to win at least one stage, which obviously we ended up doing it. But you know, it's such a shame the misfortune of John going out with the mechanical fail. I would have loved to have seen over the course of the weekend, can I bring it closer to him, closer to him? And yeah, it's, you know, as far as talking about the machinery and kind of moving swiftly on to Daniel Harper, first of all, big shout out, you know, what a fantastic guy. And what we really enjoyed rallying with Daniel was that they're still up for a laugh. It's not too serious, you know, they're not helmets off and not talking to you. They come over, they give you a bit of a wind up, say, oh, well, you bit a bit rubbish in there, didn't you? Or, oh, that was a bit good, or that was a bit bad. And I love all that. That's what rallying's about at the end of the day. But you know what, like, well, you can speak to Dan and see what he says after it. He'll probably give me a bit of nonsense for this. But, you know, I did feel that as I started to get a feel for the car during the Saturday day, you know, I managed to, I was faster than him by 7 seconds in the loss, but that was because he had a moment. So, but maybe that was because I was pushing him into that pace and, you know, he was overdriving it. Who knows? And that may have been the demise of that wheel bearing. You know, it might have had a few more excursions, or it could have just been mechanical. It was, you know, a real shame that both John McCrone and Dan Harper went out, because I would have had perhaps just the same feeling, you know, satisfied feeling if I came third place behind those two and had won 2 stages. I would have been over the moon. You know, if I can get onto that pace and know, look, I'm in there. If I can afford to spend 30 grand a year for the next 3 years, then, you know, I would like to think that I can win it. We managed to do that this year, so thankfully for my bank account, that's kind of sorted that. But a kind of interesting thing just to point out was the psychology of myself and how these things kind of came about. So trying to be kind of you know, dangerously optimistic and really push yourself. You know, I love that. That's the heart of it all. You've got to believe in yourself, and that come in spades from Craig. It was absolutely fantastic, and the team around me. And I kind of written on my phone that you can win the Mull Rally. That was on my screensaver because I kind of had to just get that in and start believing it, you know. Now, after I won the rally, I thought there's an interesting part of psychology there. The fact, the terminology that I used, I can win the Mull Rally rather than I will win it. So I knew in myself that I can win it and give it 3 years and some more seat time and a bit more cash. But, you know, I wasn't necessarily thinking that I was going to win it straight away. So very thankful that I did. You know, fantastic bits of kit. That Rally 2 car is an amazing bit of kit. The way it corners, the way it handles, you know, on the brakes, the acceleration is fantastic. Dan Harper, huge amount of seat time in that car. He knows it inside and out. It's got more power, you know, it's quicker, but perhaps doesn't corner, and the mechanics are perhaps not quite as good. So it kind of evens out there, I would say, with his seat time, and, you know, such a fantastic driver. And he, you know, Daniel Harper's a local to Mull, let's be honest. You know, he's been up here enough. You know, he's come up. He knows where he's going in the dark. You know, you can't be pulling that local knowledge carry on with us, you know, with Dan. He knows where he's going. So, you know, what a privilege to rally against these lads in these cars, and what a beautiful bunch of cars we had. But yeah, looking to next year, let's see. I dare say the Vikings will return. Let me just say that, and we will be there with the one on the side, whether it be an old 106 and they might have to reseed us a little bit, not too far back, or I don't know, maybe a Mark II Escort or a Rally 2 car. Who knows? I'll leave it up to you to kind of speculate on that one. But let's just say we will be back to kind of try our best to reclaim that title.
Really, really interesting story, and just letting you talk there is fantastic. It reminds me of a conversation I was actually having with a sponsor, actually, from Richard Burns's era. So David Williams, shout out to David if he ever listens to this. And we were chatting about why Richard Burns was good and actually different to me when we were competing against each other. And what David remembered as a sponsor is that Richard never damaged the car. And I knew that because his consistent performances. But as a sponsor, David's big memory was that even if it was a Group N car, it was a challenge car, it was very well thought out, and he got all his speed through nice, immaculate, well thought out driving, mainly because it was never Richard's car. But because of that attitude, he won a lot, and he pushed other people that might have been fractionally quicker into making mistakes and being harder on their car. And therefore, results always came Richard's way. And that's not to degrade his performance. He was just a clever, intelligent approach to his driving, his winning, and you've reflected exactly the same attitude. So you should be, don't in any way underestimate what you just said, in that put in people that might be a bit more aggressive. If you push those to running on their limit, they will have a mechanical problem. So there's you should be every bit as proud as being able to manipulate an intelligent win as you do by a raw outright victory that's done through aggression. So, you know, well done, and compliments to you. Never apologise for winning, because however you do that is a good win. So don't apologise for it. Just tell Daniel you kicked his arse one way or the other. That'll move us on to Damien. Back to Damien. To finish this podcast, we've got good, exciting news, I think. You two guys are up for giving back, which is brilliant. You've already shown that you can show support further down the field rather than an outright winner. As luck has it, you've been supporting an outright winner. But just tell me, and leaving us on a positive, for the audience out there, tell us about some of your plans for the future, Damien.
Well, this year we supported 3 cars for the Beatson Building Supplies Mull Rally. So we had Fergus, John McDowan, and Scott Macbeth. And obviously, sadly, John's rally came to an abrupt halt with mechanical failure. Scott, on the other hand, didn't, and he achieved a phenomenal 4th place in his Evo. And I think you know, Scott will return to Mull next year with a very different piece of machinery that he's now got in his garage. So we're really hopeful to support the guys again next year. Obviously, John and Scott, but really important is for Fergus. So we're looking at doing something different. We're not going to give a huge amount away just yet, because it's the dust has hardly settled on the lock stage since this year's event. But we're looking at something a little bit different, and a whole lot of focus on the guys further down the pack. That's, you know, the Mull 24. Absolutely, Fergus is going to go out with the number 1 on his door. But there will be, you know, we're really pushing to bring a lot of people together if we can, and make this something special, because the event is you know, it's an incredible experience for all aspects, not just the drivers and navigators, the teams, the spectators, the locals. It's watch this space. There will be something coming.
That's lovely. And the idea, I know, because I've talked to various people about it, but ultimately, I guess what we're hinting towards there is you'd like to set up something that might be a reward scheme to people who are competing further down the field. And so if anybody's watching this and they want to get involved with that, so it's Mull Rally, carbon positive motorsport. You can give back a little bit to the environment. It's great from a sponsorship point of view. And if we can think of some way of helping competitors further down the field, not necessarily the front runners, then we're all going to put our heads together, see what we can come up with that's positive for motorsport. It'll be fronted by Damien, and certainly as an ambassador of whatever we think of, or what I say we, it's nothing to do with me, but what those guys think of, from Fergus's point of view, is certainly going to be helping along the way. Everybody in this podcast is positive, but Damien, thanks so much for joining us. You're a very positive sponsor. You're exactly what the sport needs. Fergus, you're an amazing driver. Should be really proud of what you've achieved this year, and massive compliments to your skills in media and putting motorsport in a positive light, and obviously achieving what you did as far as the driver is concerned. You can be proud of that, but be just as proud as your enthusiasm, and you're a shining light for our sports. Well done. And Paul, I'm going to leave you to have the final words, but really all we're saying is carbon positive. It's a really good thing to get sponsors on board. We need it. It secures the future of rallying. Competitors, professionals, drivers, co-drivers, but especially event organisers can contact you and get involved with what you're doing with the company. And it's just positive stuff. So Paul, final message, and we'll say goodbye for the carbon positive first episode of the podcast.
Yeah, but Kevin, I'd need to say thank you to you. Actually, you've been very supportive to put this podcast together. It is about the positive things that happen in motorsport. It's not just about offsetting. We just happen to have a similar name, and for me, it's great. So thank you for episode 1, the Vikings return. Our idea, I think, Kev, is to do more of these podcasts over the months ahead, and always focusing on a new positive story about the sport. So thanks to Damon, thanks to Fergus, thanks to Kat, but thanks to you, Kev, for putting everything you've done into this.
See you next time, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.